I'm going to try the Superman workout. David Corenswet claims that he gained 40 pounds to get ready to play Superman, going from 195 to 240 pounds at 6'4". I am 5'8" and I am 175. We're basically the same height, the same weight, so it's going to work out really well. Now, according to Men's Health, he's doing incline dumbbell press to start, and then we're doing a couple supersets. He had, what, like 6 months, 9 months to get ready. So his training was really life, rest, recovery, train, eat, and then kind of repeat. In terms of warm up, there's no right way to warm up. Just do whatever you would do to warm up. Some people stretch, some people do lighter weight, some people get right into it. There's no right way. There's no correct way. I'm not going to tell you this is how you warm up. So normally what I'll do is I'll start with lighter weight, especially for the shoulders, just because I want to make sure all of those movements are firing correctly. I'm going to go for the 50s because they're the heaviest dumbbells in the gym that I work in. I could probably go heavier. All right, that felt pretty good. I think it's very important to control the eccentric. So especially learning in interviews that he had to focus on the shoulders a lot. We really want to make sure that eccentric, so that that descent of the dumbbell is super controlled. It's going to allow a lot more activation and stimulus to go into that shoulder to then press forward with the chest. It's just going to be all around better for you, going to be better for the joints. Obviously, when you're doing that, take heed of the weight you're doing, because, like I said, I could probably do more weight, but because I was doing those very slow reps and pausing at the bottom, I don't really have a reason to go heavier than 45, 50 pound dumbbells, because the intensity is going to be there. You can kind of hear I'm like catching my breath in between sentences, because even though that weight I know I could rep out, controlling the weight and pausing at the bottom made that a much harder set. I also want to note I did 12 reps. So I've seen 2 camps where it was either 6 to 12 reps or it was 10 reps for every set. I'm going to live in the 6 to 12 rep range because I think it's better to work in rep ranges, especially when your intensity is super high. If you're hitting the same exact reps every set on every exercise, probably means you're not going intense enough. So if I give myself a rep range and I start at 12, and maybe on this set I get 11, or maybe I'll get 12, but if I get 11 or 10, then it means my intensity is staying just as high. My muscles are just a little bit more tired than on the first set. Notice how I didn't throw the weight down, because I'm not a lunk. So it seems like David had a really good trainer, someone who kind of understood the principles and science of progressive overload and hypertrophy. And obviously he wanted to get strong, like farmer strength strong. So like, even if he didn't have a 6-pack, I mean, you could look at the guy and be like, all right, he can move some weight. And I think his trainer did a really great job of kind of having those scientific principles of overload and hypertrophy, but also like power. But I think 6 to 12 is a good range where, like, if he can move weight up to 12 reps, there's going to be progressive overload and a lot of runway to increase weight or add a set or something like that. So then over time you can progress. So like, for instance, he could be doing incline dumbbell press, start at 50 pounds, and maybe the first week he's getting 6 to 8 reps, the second week maybe 7 to 9. And then once he gets up to that like 10 to 12, maybe even exceeding 12 reps, increase the weight, and then you kind of restart, and then you're back at that 6 to 8, and it's just a progression, a progressive overload. And especially with the diet that he had, it would make sense to progress in that way, because he was taking in so many calories, so he has a lot more energy to output when it comes to training. He's going to see some pretty insane results if he adheres to his diet in the way that he obviously did. Based on how much weight he gained, it's very obvious that he adhered to his diet and followed these principles to a T. For reference, I got 11 on that last one. I'll probably try to go for 11 again. Three sets. I feel pretty good, pretty warm, but I want to follow the training program, so we'll do 4. But I think what's going to happen on the next 2 exercises, we're doing a flat bench press, which I'm going to do on a Smith machine because I prefer it. It's a little bit more stable, and a high to low cable fly. I think my front delts and my pecs are going to be really exhausted. For the fact that we're doing 4 sets on this, I would probably be doing 2 to 3 sets on the bench press and high to low cable flies. But for the sake of the video, I will do 4 sets. If your intensity is low, you're not using adequate weight or moving the weight with a slow and controlled pace, it's probably going to feel really easy, and that's cool. But the way I train is a lot. We'll move on to the superset. I just did a couple feeler reps at the weight I would like to use, and it's heavy. I feel it because of those other 4 sets we already did. So this is going to be really interesting. Also, pro tip, stop tracking the bar when you add up your weight. Don't track this. Not a Smith machine, at least. You can track a free weight bar. That's totally fine. But a Smith machine, the resistance is confusing. So stop tracking it and just track whatever you load up. It's so much easier. Here we go for 10 on these. Yeah, that superset's no joke. I definitely feel it. I think I would rather take out the flat bench or move it to later in the workout and superset something else that's more antagonistic. So like a high to low fly and maybe like rear delts, because they're opposites. Just because at the rate of how this is going, I am intrigued to see how much juice I have in the tank for the other exercises that aren't your chest. You know, my chest feels pumped, like it feels good. So we'll see. I think something I'm curious about is his rest times in between these exercises, because, you know, I'm still catching my breath a little bit. It's been about a minute and a half. You know, for progressive overload and hypertrophy, you can get away with a little bit more rest, but 4 supersets, you have to think that his rest times are upwards of like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Superman, Superman, Superman. Dun, 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 dun. Costume change. I can understand the importance of chest volume here. Obviously, this is a push workout. He did push-pull legs. I can see the merit in high chest volume because of the emblem, you know, and the posture associated with Superman. You know, shoulders back, chest loud and open. For growth and progression, I think this should be the last set. I'm going to do 2 more. But if I was to think about balance and balancing all the body parts that we're going to be pushing with the pushing motions of a push day, it's just a little bit too much volume, which is not bad. It's not necessarily right or wrong. I just think it's too much. That doesn't necessarily equal negative or incorrect. It just means it's too much. Yeah, that's good. A little off balance. Did you see that? My frost breath. To move the weight. One more set before we get into shoulders. And I really like shoulders because The shoulder is such an interesting piece of the body because the ball is socket joint, so it can move so many different ways and do so many different things, and it's vital in so many different movements. So I think it's just an interesting part of the body. I have narrow clavicles genetically, so my frame is a little bit narrower, which means my shoulders don't really cap the way that like a strong person's shoulders would. I have to work extra hard to kind of get that 3D delt look, and I like the challenge. Frost breath. Okay. All right. So I'm running out of storage. So I'm gonna try and get through this as quick as possible. I've done 3 sets of this shoulder superset, and I've been talking about kind of how I've been discussing the supersets and everything. And I don't want it to come off like I think this chest superset that's in here is bad per se. It's more so that I just don't agree with the exercise selection because of the way I train. And that comes down to my preferences. And I think it's very important to have preferences in the gym, because what that signifies is that you're taking the time to figure out what works and what doesn't for you. And that's really what the gym is there for. It's there for you to improve, and it's there for you to learn more about yourself. So however you improve, whether that be mentally, physically, in performance, having preferences is a good thing, and it's good to challenge them once in a while, which is why I'm doing this workout despite not thinking that the way it's sequenced and selected is optimal. But that just means it's not optimal for me and my preferences. It could be great for you. That being said, I've really enjoyed this shoulder superset. So let's get it done. That could have been dangerous. Something I talked about in the video that got cut off of these other sets is range of motion. Now, there's merit to partials and there's merit to full ranges. There's merit to locking out your elbows and your knees. There's merit to stopping just before. It all depends on what you're training for and what your goals are. When I do machine leg extensions, so kicking out like this, usually I'm doing myo rep leg extensions. So I'm doing 1 set to my given rep range, rest for about 5 seconds, and then I do as many reps as I can. So generally I'll do like 12 to 16 reps, and then I'll do somewhere in like the 4 to 6 reps at the same weight after that little 5-second rest. What I want to note about range of motion is on that first round of reps where I'm doing 12 to 16, I'm locking my knee out every time until, you know, my body's shaking, I'm cramping, any of the following that's kind of impeding my ability to perform with good technique, and then I'm stopping. Rest for 5 seconds, and then those subsequent reps that I'm doing after that 5-second rest, I'm not necessarily locking my knee out on every rep because my legs are super tired, especially my quads. Range of motion, it depends. Partials, it depends. I'll use partials sometimes, I'll use full range of motion more often. It's something I prefer to do. It's better for my joints. It's better for my long-term health. So that's why I do it. But I will never say no to doing partials, especially if I'm trying to go to failure, trying to squeeze out as much as humanly possible. I want to be so real with you. I've tried to record 4 times, so 4 sets. The arm superset, which is reverse grip, tricep extensions, and dumbbell bicep curls, like so. My storage has ran out. It is full and I can't do it. I've done it 4 times, so I've given this 4 goes. I promise you, I did it. I feel it. But something I wanted to touch on in terms of where I fall in agreeing with it as a good exercise selection, sequencing, whatever. I would never do a reverse grip tricep extension because your grip is everything. If your grip isn't there, you're not going to be able to perform the movement. And if the goal is progression or growth, you never want a limiting factor like that. That's why people use Versa grips. So like they're grip helpers. So for like pulling, especially, super helpful. Like I said, if the goal is progression or growth, you don't want a limiting factor stopping you from progression and growth. So if my grip is always faltering on the 9th rep, it's going to be very hard for me to get the 10th rep, to get 5 extra pounds on the stack. You know, these small progressions that you can make when there's not a limiting factor are going to be impossible because your grip is not going to be there. You could train grip to figure that out, but that's just, like, what's the point if you want your triceps to grow? If you want big arms, there are times when it's just easier to change an exercise than it is to kind of beat a dead horse. So instead of a reverse grip like this, I would much rather opt for a tricep push down where grip is not a limiting factor at all. In fact, you have the most leverage because you can lean over the bar, your hands are in place, and you can just do the same thing. It's the same exact movement, but my wrists are hardly involved at all. If anything, my hands can be like this and I can still do the movement. I couldn't get my storage together like a professional for that last superset. Final thoughts on the Superman workout. There is merit to supersets as well as down sets, drop sets, myo sets. All of these different types of ways of doing sets that aren't just do 10 reps and then put the weight down are just ways to intensify an exercise. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, that being said, if I were to personally do this programming, I would switch around some of the exercise selections to better complement antagonistic muscles rather than kind of overloading the chest or the shoulders. Because while we do want to experience a great amount of stimulus and growth, there is a window, I think, where we hit a perfect intersection of like, I'm going to be sore after this, but also my recovery is going to be pretty smooth versus like my chest is going to be overworked and I'm going to be sore for a while. I actually did enjoy the workout. I really like the shoulder superset just because I love doing shoulders anyways, but the arm superset I liked, but I would rather do a different tricep exercise. But in terms of like a pump and how it felt, it was pretty good. I can see how David Corenswet could have built muscle for sure, but a lot of it comes down to his nutrition and diet. That's going to be probably the primary factor that allowed for him to grow the way he did. Yeah, this was fun. I enjoyed it. If there's any other like celebrity workouts I should try, I'll do it. I hope you enjoyed this. I had fun. I enjoyed doing it. And I'll see ya.